pleasant day to each and everyone. We are the group number 8 and welcome to week 9. This is writing objective type test items. These are our objectives. At the end of the lesson, the students will be able to determine the ways of writing different objective type test items, collaboratively create multiple choice test items assessing higher order thinking skills in the field of specialization using Google Forms, and reflect on the advantages and disadvantages of objective type of tests as teacher education students. These are the topics that we will be tackling today. The different objective type test items are completion type, identification type, labeling type, alternative response type, matching type, and multiple choice type.
Once again, good day to each and everyone. My name is Roshan Pineda from BSIE ICT 2E, and I am here for objective type of test items and completion type test items.
Now, let's talk about objective type test items. According to CHACMA 2020, objective type of test is one for which scoring rules are exhaustive and specific, that they do not allow the scorers to make subjective judgments. Ibig sabihin nito, ang objective type of test ay free of bias. Kapag sinabing free of bias, regardless ng nararamdaman ng teacher or ng scorer sa students, whether it's a positive or negative, hindi nito maapektuhan yung score ng student sa test na iyon. Kasi, dinodetermine dito sa objective type of test kung ang student ay mali o tama sa particular test item sa pamamagitan ng keto correction. Ang objective type of test ay karaniwang ginagamit sa mga knowledge level questions o yung mga low level or lower order thinking skills na questions. Pero, merong objective type of test na ginagamit din para ma-assess yung higher order thinking skills ng students. Gaya sa atin sa College of Industrial Education, yung mga professor natin, merong exams na HOTS, multiple choice type, and etong mga to ay nakapattern sa licensure examination na iti-take natin someday. Merong dalawang type ng objective test items. Ito ang supply type at ang selection type. Kapag sinabing supply type, ang students ay magsusupply or mag-identify ng sagot at ito ay walang choices, walang options. Samantalang sa selection type naman ay mayroong option ng student na pagpipilian. Ang mga supply type na test item ay simple recall, completion type, identification, labeling, enumeration. Ang mga selection type naman ay alternative response, matching type, rearrangement of elements, multiple choice test, at multiple responses test. Let us begin with completion type test items. Completion type requires students to finish an incomplete statement by filling in the blank with correct answer. Ang completion type ay parang identification type test item. Pero ito ay statement na merong blanco, ilalagay natin yun ng correct answer. So wala tayong pipilian dito, kaya nga ito ay isang uri ng supply type test item. Paano nga ba sumulat ng completion type test items? So ito yung mga suggestions ni na Dr. Barbaser and Dr. Kalayag sa kanilang aklat na Assessment of Students Learning Revised Edition 2015. Una, avoid omitting so many words. Sa completion type test item, mahalagang part ng statement ang ino-omit or yung tinatanggal or pinapahula sa mga student. Pwede itong word, pwedeng phrase, pero hindi dapat sobrang daming words yung tatanggalin natin kasi hindi na nagiging klaro yung statement. Example, the Philippines is located blank and blank. Ang statement na to ay isang poor na completion test item kasi hindi malinaw kung ano yung sasagutan ng student. Kung ako ang estudyante magsasagot nito, maguguluhan din ako at hindi ko rin ito masasagutan kasi halatang sobra-sobra yung words na tinanggal para pasagutan tong test na to. So ganito yung mas okay na version netong test item na to. The Philippines is located between 4 degrees, 21 degrees blank and blank east longitude. Kung ikaw yung estudyante na nag-aral talaga dito sa particular topic na to, which is obviously location of the Philippines, your exact location ng Philippines, alam mo yung eksaktong part na ilalagay yung sagot na north latitude and 160 to 127 degrees. Next example. The three stars in blank flag represent blank, blank, and blank. So ito, halatang poor yung completion test item na to kasi masyadong maraming words yung tinanggal and hindi na talaga maiintindihan kung ano pa yung sasagutin dito. Merong word na flag pero sobrang daming flag sa buong mundo. At kung ano mo yung mga nare-represent natin, hindi rin naman nating alam. Maliban na lang kung ito yung flag ng Philippines. Pero kung ikaw yung student, hindi ka rin namang sure kung ito talaga yun. Kasi nga sobrang daming words na tinanggal. Eh hindi lang naman Philippines yung merong stars, 'di ba? Na sa flag. So ito yung mas okay na version nitong completion test item na to. The three stars in Philippine flag represent Luzon, blank, and blank. So ito, madali na lang to sa part ng student na isipin ano-ano ba yung nire-represent ng tatlong stars na yon kasi dinetermine na Philippine flag, hindi katulad sa unang part na blank o yung part na yon. Then ibigay din isa pang option, nilagay yung Luzon, then dalawa na lang ang pinapahulaan. So since 3 stars lang naman yun, ibig sabihin dalawa na lang nga yung pwedeng sagot at ito ay Panay and Mindanao. Second suggestion, the completion type test items must have single correct answer as much as possible. So nabanggit kanina na sa completion type test items, pwedeng phrase, pwedeng word, pero as much as possible, single correct answer lang. Kasi mas madaling masagutan ng student kapag ganon. Example, food chain is the transfer of energy from blank. So ito yung poor na completion test item kasi kapag sinabing from, ibig sabihin merong concept na before and after or from one concept to another. Ibig sabihin hindi ito single correct answer kundi phrase. Ito ang better version ng completion test item na iyon. Food chain is the transfer of energy from blank to the consumers. So dito, kitang-kita natin no, na isa lang yung correct answer talaga na pwedeng ilagay dito sa statement na to kasi malino naman siya na isa lang talaga yung pinapasagutan dito sa test na to. At sa particular question na to, ang sagot ay producers. Next example, photosynthesis is the process by which plants transform blank. Ito isang poor na completion type test items kasi mukhang halata na maraming word yung tinanggal dito and after ng word na transform, halata na hindi lang isa yung correct answer na ilalagay kundi phrase siya. Ayon kasi dito sa statement, ang photosynthesis daw ay may prosesong pinagdadaanan na merong transformation. Ibig sabihin ng transformation, merong pagbabago from one thing to another. Ibig sabihin dun pa lang, hindi isang correct answer lang pwedeng mailagay dito kundi phrase talaga, which naging reason bakit poor itong completion test item na to. So ito yung better version nitong test item na ito. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants transform light energy to blank energy. So dito pa lang, mas okay siya kumpara sa kanina kasi madedetermine talaga yung student kung ano yung tamang sagot. And atong sagot na to ay single correct answer lang talaga. Sa particular question na to, ang sagot ay chemical energy. Suggestion number 3. Avoid clues based in blank's length. Ibig sabihin nito, huwag natin bibigyan ng clue yung student na ang sasagot dapat nila ay mahaba base sa length nito or maikli base sa length nito. Example, ito. Animals exhale blank, ay medyo mahaba yung blank, in the atmosphere which are used by plants for photosynthesis. Ang sagot dito ay carbon dioxide. Ang carbon dioxide kapag in-spell out mo siya dito ay mahaba talaga. So, may possibility na mapunan niya yung space na yan. Pero, gaya nga ng suggestion dito, hindi dapat bibigay ng clue base sa length ng blanco. Kaya mas okay siya kung ganito na lang, gaya sa baba na eto, medyo maikli yung blank para hindi makapagbigay ng clue sa student. Kasi ang iisipin ng student kapag mahaba ay yun na yung sagot eh. So dito medyo mag-iisip yung student kung sakto ba talaga or carbon dioxide ba talaga yung sagot kasi mukhang hindi siya kakasya sa blank. Pero kung ayun naman ang tamang sagot, i-accept talaga siya as correct. Regardless kung gaano kaikli yung blank kasi ayun yung tamang sagot eh. Ito ang isa pang example. For the poor, the quadratic equation is blank. Ang blank na to ay long blank. Alam naman natin kung ano yung quadratic equation. So ito yun, negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So mahaba siya. Mahaba na yung sagot, mahaba pa yung blank, which makes this statement poor kasi masyado mong binibigyan ng clue yung student na ang isasagot dapat ay mahaba. I-given na nga na mahaba yung sagot. So mas okay siya kung ganito. The quadratic equation is short blank. Short blank lang kasi para mas mag-isip yung student kung tama ba yung nasa isip niya na tamang formula ng quadratic equation kasi mukhang hindi kakasya dahil maikli. Pero gaya nga sinabi ko kanina, kahit maikli pa yan, kung ayun yung tamang sagot, ayun yung tamang sagot. Hindi yun magiging mali. Fourth suggestion, avoid grammatical clues. Example, a piece of hardware that sends data into the computer is an blank device. So, itong statement ay poor completion test item statement kasi yung qualifier na an ay naka-indicate dito. Ibig sabihin, binibigyan ng clue yung student na ang sagot ay vowel, magsisimula. Alam naman natin 'di ba na ang clue nandito na sa sense data, ibig sabihin ang sagot talaga ay input. Pero ikaw, tinulungan mo pa din yung student na ilagay ay input kasi because of the qualifier an which is wrong. So mas okay kung ganito siya. A piece of hardware that sends data into the computer is a, then nakaparenthesis yung n, blank device. So dito, kung talagang alam ng student na ang keyword dito ay sends data into the computer, input talaga yung ilalagay niya dito. Ngayon, kahit na nakaparenthesis yung letter n, kung talagang alam ng student na ang ilalagay niya ay input, ayun pa rin talaga ang ilalagay niya at di siya magdadalawang isip at alam niya na ito ay panggulo lang. Next example, in animation, pen display is an blank. So ito poor to kasi dito sa qualifier na an. Ang sagot dito equipment kasi ang pen display is ang equipment. Pero ikaw binibigyan mo ng clue yung student na dapat ang ilagay niya equipment. So mas okay kung ganito siya. In animation, pen display is a, then nakaparenthesis yung n, blank. Para mag-isip yung student kung ayun ba talagang ilalagay niya. Ano ba, tool, material, or equipment. Diba? So mag-iisip ngayon yung student. Kasi kapag nilagay mo an, automatic na equipment, ay naka-cross out na agad yung tool and material.
These are the last two suggestions in writing completion type test items. Avoid placing the blank at the beginning of the statement. Bakit? Kasi kung ang missing word ay nasa beginning ng statement, maaaring mas humaba yung oras na guguli ng student para sagutan ng tanong na to. Tandaan natin na ang completion type of test ay nagsusukat lamang ng knowledge level or lower order thinking skill gaya ng recalling, kaya hindi dapat sobrang daming time ang gugugulin ng student sa pagsagot nito. Hindi ito katulad ng HATS na inaabot ng at least 3 minutes sa pagsagot. So ito ay lower order thinking skills lamang ang sinusukat, kaya dapat mas maikling time yung pagsagot ng student dito. Last suggestion, avoid direct lifting of statements from the reference. Bakit? Kasi kapag eksakto yung statement na nasa reference, ang tendency ng estudyante ay hindi na mag-aral kundi kabisaduhin na lang ng kabisaduhin yung reference. Sa completion type test item, bukod sa recalling, sinusukat din natin yung understanding ng student sa lesson, kaya hindi dapat direkta kasi nga gaya ng sinabi ko kanina. Ang tendency niyan, kakabisaduhin na lang nakakabisaduhin yung student, yung buong, kung libro man yan, buong libro kakabisaduhin niya, and wala nang learning yun. So, those are the suggestions in writing completion type test items.
So, good day everyone. I am Angel Ann Santos Miranda from BSIE ICT 2F, and I'm here to discuss with you about the identification type of test and labeling type of test. So, for identification type of test, according to Badang 2016, it is an object type of test in a form of completion test which is defined, described, explained, or indicated by a picture, diagram, or complete object, and the term referred to is supplied by the pupil or the student. The identification answer must be brief, specific as possible. Um, it is also a typical type of examination and answerable by small or short answers, and it is also often used to test remembering key facts and terms. So for the advantage of uh, identification type of test or identification test, it is easy to construct. It is easier to construct than the other type of test. Second one is it has a low probability of guessing the answer. Why? Because there are no choices. It is only a phrase or a question and answerable by a short answer. And third one is it is good to measure the lower level of cognitive taxonomy. So for the disadvantage of identification type of test, first one is it only measures the rote memory. When we say rote memory, it is the part of our memory where we remember the things or the objects that we see, we read about, we heard about. So that is the rote memory. Next one is the short answer, because there are some students who guess answers by just putting a certain answer even though it isn't connected with the identification question. So they're just like answering it with a word that is not even like aligned with the identification question. And lastly is it doesn't measure a complex outcome, because as I've said earlier, it only measures the lower level or the lowest level of cognitive taxonomy, and also it just measures the rote memory. So with identification type of test, you can make your students think critically, because they just have to answer a certain word or a short answer for this kind of test. So for the construction of identification type of test, the definition, description, or explanation of the term may be given uh, by means of phrase or incomplete statement if it is not indicated by a picture, diagram, or a concrete object. And also the statement should be phrased that there will be one response. So for example, question number 1. It is a branch of science that deals with the living organism and the vital process. So that is the identification question. It is just a phrase, and then it is answerable by a word or a short or short answer or specifically a word. And the answer is biology. And another one, the best and the most accurate measure of variability. So that is the identification question, and it is only a phrase, and the answer is standard deviation. So it is just a word that completes the phrase. So we do have here three examples, and I already said one of the examples earlier. So for the first question, it is a branch of science that deals with properties, composition, and structure of elements and compounds. For the question number 2, it is a branch of science that deals with the structure of matter and how the fundamental constituents of the universe interacts. And then the third question, it is a branch of science that deals with the living organisms and their vital processes. So as you observe and see, the question 1, 2, 3 are only phrases, and it is answerable by one response. And the answer for these questions are, for question number 1, the answer is chemistry. For number 2, it is physics. And then last, for number 3, it is biology. So as you can see, it is answerable by a word or a short answer, and obviously it completes the phrase as a one informative sentence. So let's proceed to labeling type of test. So according to Badang 2016, it is an objective type of test in which the names of parts of the diagram, maps, drawing, or picture are to be indicated. So there are blank space provided where the students can put their answers, and also it is answerable by a word or a short answer. So labeling type of test is also a recall type of examination, same with identification type of test. It is answerable by short or small answers, and it also often used to remember key facts and terms. So for the advantage of labeling type of test, first, it is easier to answer because the students can see pictures, and they can also immediately remember what is the name of that part because there's a picture, like visual learning, so they can recall it, and it will be easier for them to answer or to find what is the name of that part. And then second one is that yes, it is what do you call this, answerable by word. And the third one is good to measure the lower or lowest level of cognitive taxonomy, which is the remembering part. Yeah, because this is where they remember the names of the parts, and it is the surface knowledge. So for the disadvantage of the labeling type of test, it is the first, it measures only the rote memory. As I've said earlier, rote memory is the remembering one. And then second is they can also guess the answer by just putting a certain word even though it's not connected, or um, it is not even aligned, or it was never even heard to be the name of that part of that diagram. And then the third is it rarely measures the complex outcomes, since it only measures the surface level or the rote memory of the students. So they will not think truly, they will just remember the names but not how it works. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of labeling type of test. So how do we construct labeling type of test? So first, make the diagram, map, drawing or picture to be labeled very clear and recognizable, especially the parts to be labeled. Second, the parts to be labeled should be indicated by the arrows so that the labels can be written in a vertical column in a definite place and not on the face the diagram, map, drawing or picture. And labeling can be matching type of test if the labels with some extras are given. So in labeling type of test, there are excess words. It makes the students think if that kind of word, the extra word, are really in that diagram. And also it will be it will be easy if you don't put any extra words, like for example, okay, this is the last word, so that's the word, exactly the word that they will put in the last space provided. So with an extra word, we will think if which of the two is the right answer. So that's how we construct labeling type of test, and we must provide a diagram that is clear to see, and words that are also recognizable enough for them to read and to remember those kinds of words, and for them to know where they should put it properly. So we do have here an example, which is the anatomy of the frog, and as you can see, this is a good example because the words here are readable and the picture itself is recognizable, because based on my personal experience, of course as a student, I do encounter answering labeling type of test. So some students struggled on identifying the parts of a diagram due to they can't recognize the image anymore. Maybe because of repeating of photocopying of that paper. The quality of the image is already, it is getting worse. So the image is not recognizable anymore, and it will be like a hassle for the students when they are taking that kind of examination, because they have to go to the facilitator to ask like what kind of image is this, where is this part, and it will be a struggle not only for the students but also to the facilitator because they have to find another test paper which has a good quality of that image, which is recognizable. But um, there are also sometimes that they can find another or extra test papers, and the student doesn't have any choice but to continue answering it. So yeah, it is a bad thing for the student, because it is his score his or her score will be affected. So for the last example, we do have here a picture which is compound light microscope, and it does have like a list. At the left side it has a list of words, of the parts of the compound light microscope, and there's also a box, like a rectangular box and an arrow where we're pointing out where it is located. So this is an example of like a labeling type of test. Mostly this is the structure of the diagram we see in our tests, and as you can see, there are no extra words, but sometimes teachers put extra words for the students to think truly if that is the right answer or not.
Good day, everyone. I am Jefferson Paul E. Ordonio from BSI ICT 2F, and my report is about alternative response type test items. Alternative response tests consist of a declarative statements that the student is asked to mark true or false, right or wrong, correct or incorrect, yes or no, fact or opinion, agree or disagree, or the like. The example of alternative response test items are true or false. True or false items are typically used to measure the ability to identify whether or not the statements of facts are correct. The basic format is simply a declarative statement that the student must judge as true or false. No modification to this basic form in which the student must respond yes or no, agree or disagree only. This is the example of writing alternative response type test items.
Good day everyone, I'm Alexander Guzman Jr. from BSIE ICT2E, and I will discuss the matching type test. So first, I will define it. So what is matching type test? Matching type test is measures the ability to identify the relationship between a set of similar items. So here is many teachers use this type of test to know the learnings and the knowledge about what they tackled on the topic, and this this also may use to criticize to critically think the students on what are the possible answer on the questions, or on the column A to column B. So um, each of which has two components such as words and their definitions, symbols and their meanings, and maybe dates and events. So that's it. So next, the items in the first column are called premises, and then the answers in the second column are the response. So by convention, the items in column A are numbered, and the items in column B are in the alphabetical with capital letters. So as we can see, in the column B, there is a numbering of a question which is partnered by the column B, and then and column A is called premises, then the column B called the response, and the column A is also start with the numbers, and column B always starts with the alphabetical and the capital letters. That's it. So next, when to use matching type test. So they are effective when you need to measure the learner's ability to identify the relationship or association between the similar items. They work best when the course content has many parallel concepts, such as the terms and the definitions, which is um, we give as we gave them in an question, which is the term, and then they give the definitions. The next is the objectives or the pictures and label. So we give them the objects or a picture, which is they partner it, or they um, see the connection between the column B, which is we gave them the words um, that are explain the pictures in column A. So that's it. Then the symbols and the proper names, and then cause and effects, and the scenarios and the response, which is we all know that the we gave them the any scenarios in column A, which is the premises, then they give them the response, which is in the column B. Then the principles and scenarios to which they apply. So that's it. So now I will discuss about the advantage and disadvantages of matching type test. So first, the advantage of matching type tests is they provide the objective measurement of students' knowledge, then allow the comparison of related ideas, concepts, or theories. So here, as we can see, they're more critical thinking about what they want to answer in the column A, which is the answer in the column B. Then they also um, it is the advantage to more on learn about the ideas or the concept about they want to pick about the question, and then that's it. Then the advantages or the disadvantage of using using matching type tests is may overestimate learning due to the influence of guessing. Maybe where they more on pick another maybe the students pick their answer in the column B, and they are not use their critical thinking, and they maybe overestimate the learning. Then next is the may limit assessment to lower levels of understanding. So the assessment that they give the teacher, um, maybe they lower the levels because of this type of test. So that's it. So as we can see here, these are the examples of matching type test. So first is the constructed matching questions in column A to column B. So first, as we can see, the column A is refers to the questions or the the sentence, which is the answer is in the column B. So first is the largest planet in the solar system then the planet human first landed on, then the furthest planet from Earth, the planet with an observable ring system, then the smallest planet in the solar system. So, as we can see, the answer in the column A is in the column B. So, the students um, would seek the answer of the possible which is the correct answer in the column A. So first is the largest planet in the solar system. So as we know is the largest planet in the solar system is the Jupiter. Then the next is the answer in the column in the number 1 is the letter D, which is the Jupiter. Then the number 2, the planet humans first landed on. So the number 2, the answer in the number 2 is the moon, which is letter C. Then the number 3, the furthest planet from Earth. So we all know that the furthest planet on Earth is the Neptune, and the letter B. And then number 4, the planet with an observable ring system is called the Saturn. So the answer in the number 4 is letter E. Then the number 5, the smallest planet in the solar system, which is the Mercury. So that's it. So here I will discuss the second example, which is the classification questions. The direction here is sort the following animals according to the species they belong to. So here, there is no possibility answer that the answer is one. Here, they maybe in one question there is many answer. So here, as we can see, in column A, there has a three terms that the teacher gave. Then in column B, there has a 5 answers for the column A. So as we can see, number 1 is mammals. So what are the mammals in the column B? So in the column B, the mammals here are the mammals. So the mammals here is the salamander, which is the there is a one answer. Then the number 2 is the birds. So here in column B, what are the birds here? So first is the letter B, the duck. Then the letter dog. Then the dog is the pelican though. So there is the answer in number 2. Then in number 3, the term here is the fish. Then the answer in column B is the whale, and the letter C, the dolphin. So that's it.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening sa inyo lahat. My name is Neneng from BSIE ICT 2F, and I'll be reporting the multiple choice type test items and assessing multiple choice type test items in HOTS or higher order thinking skills. So let's proceed. The multiple choice type test of items is a form of assessment in which the students are asked to select the correct or best answer out of the choices from the list. So ito daw multiple choice type test of items. Inaalaw nito yung students na mamili ng best answers sa isang isang question. Halimbawa, may tanong tungkol or may tanong about ICT or science. So, alam naman natin sa science na medyo nakakalito yung mga answer kasi parang pare-parehas lang sila ng meaning, pero pag if you able to read the handouts or if the students are able to review the topics, they will be able to answer the question easily and right away. Okay. It requires the student to select from the given options that will make the STEM complete or correct. All incorrect or less appropriate responses are called distractors or foils. So, may tawag sa choices na nagpapagulo or sa choices na nagpapagulo sa isang tanong, which is distractors, as is na sa word, root word na siya, distractors. So, later on, i-discuss ko what is STEM for you to be able to analyze or to understand the properties or the characteristics of one multiple choice type of test items. Okay? So, sa madaling sabi, ang multiple choice type test of items daw, it assess the student knowledge if they were able to understand or review the lessons or the topics in the handouts or kung nagte-take down notes sila, they were able to read it before the examination. Okay? Next slide. So, in this slide, we will talk about STEM. So, what is STEM? STEM is an introductory part of an item, and its functions are to ask questions, set the task to be performed, or state the problem to be solved. Okay? So, first, bago natin i-discuss yung STEM, ano ba yung item? Yung item, ito na yung may STEM, meron na rin siyang distractors, and meron na rin siyang alternatives. So, bali, kompleto na yung items. Okay? So, yung items, it could be 1 to 50, 1 to 10, or 1 to 100. Any number or any amount that your facilitator desired. Okay? So, now let's proceed to STEM. So, yung STEM daw, it consists of questions. So, yung STEM, ito mismo yung tanong or ito mismo yung problem na kailangan sagutan ng students or kailangan i-understand o i-analyze ng student bago siya makapili ng tamang sagot or makapili ng sagot. Okay? So, yung STEM, pwede siyang problem solving or pwede siyang related sa math. Pwede rin naman siyang related sa science, which is experiment or about experiment, or it could be about the tools. Okay? So, as a general rule, after the examinee has read the STEM, he or she should understand the task or the hand and know the task at the hand and know what task is required by the STEM. So, ang students, for example, nanghihingi yung STEM ng isang problem solving sa math. Let's say, ang tanong is about mathematical problems. Okay? So, alam naman natin, lahat ng mathematical problems ay provided dapat ng solution para may matibay kang judgment sa iyong sagot or para i-justify or para malaman mo na talaga yun yung pinakasagot. Okay? So, kailangan muna i-understand ng student kung ano yung hinahanap, what is being asked, what are the givens. Okay? So, yun yung mga or what are the solution to be used, or what are the or or will the students use addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So in the or division, kailangan nakastate yun dun sa may kailangan nakastate yung mismong clue. 'Di ba pag addition, ang clue nun add, tapos ang subtraction naman, ang clue nun is bawas. So halimbawa ang problem is Anne buys an apple and she gave an apple to Marie. How many apple does Anne have left? Okay, so may mga choices doon. So yung mga students, kailangan nilang isolve yun. Gagamit sila ng 1 plus 1, or they could use different mathematical equations or different mathematical solutions to find out the right answer. So here are my examples from the book of science in grade 9. So which of the following places will likely be affected by tsunami? Why are the earthquakes and volcanic eruption considered natural disasters? And which office monitors volcanic activities and issues warnings of possible eruptions? So sa paggawa ng STEM, kailangan concrete yung tanong, hindi siya nakakalito, or hindi siya nakakalito, or hindi paulit-ulit yung hindi paulit-ulit yung words para yung examinee or test takers or yung students will be able to understand or will be able to analyze your question easily. Okay? So para hindi na sila ma-confuse kung ano yung tamang sagot dito or kung ano yung maling sagot dito. Okay? So next slide. Then we will talk about alternatives. So ang alternatives daw ay it is a sentence or part of a sentence that is used to complete the stem or answer the question. So meron kasing iba't ibang type ng multiple choice ay ng STEM. Pwedeng blanco siya, or halimbawa in blank, what are the best tools to be used when painting in Adobe Photoshop? ICT yun, about ICT yung tanong na yun. So dapat yung tanong doon or yung mismong word doon na hinahanap sa STEM is nandun na siya sa may alternatives. So yung alternatives, ito na yung mga choices, or yun yung tinatawag natin na choices, di ba? Kaya nga siya multiple choices kasi maraming pagpipilian ng sagot, pero isa lang ang tamang sagot. Okay? So itong alternatives, ito yung mga choices, kasama yung tamang sagot at kasama yung mga distractors or kasama yung mga nagpapagulo or nagpapa-confuse sa isang examinee or test takers. Okay, so here's my example. So in-integrate ko na dito yung STEM. Example 1, which of the following places will likely be affected by tsunami? A coastal area, B, a mountainous area, or C, a valley, or D, a plateau. So, ang possible answer is a coastal area. So, next, what are the earthquakes and volcanic eruptions considered natural disasters? They destroy nature. They are caused by nature. They have natural appearance. They look very natural. So, dito sa tanong na to, medyo tricky siya kasi medyo tricky yung isasagot kasi parang pare-parehas lang sila, 'di ba? Or meron silang root word na nature, which is nagpapagulo sa students or sa na-review ng students. But if the students were able to understand yung na-review niya, hindi lang minemorize, okay, that's it na may intindihan niya tong question na to. So the answer is they are caused by nature. So ang root word na dito is natural disasters, di ba? Kita niyo naman kung gaano kasimple or gaano kadali mamili sa multiple choices kapag yung tanong is or kapag yung STEM is concrete and kapag yung alternatives is hindi siya nakakalito at hindi pare-pareho yung constructions of sentence niya. Meron lang siyang clue words pero hindi siya pare-parehas. So last, which office monitors volcanic activities and issues warnings of possible eruption? So dito yung mga agencies. Okay? So, kailangan, pag naglagay ka ng, halimbawa, ganyan, agencies, kailangan connected pa rin siya sa science or sa about volcanic eruption. Hindi ka pwedeng maglagay ng DepEd or hindi ka pwedeng maglagay ng kung ano-anong agency. Kailangan connected pa rin siya para, or nakakadagdag to sa ganda ng sa pagkaayos ng construction mo ng isang item or ng isang question. So, multiple choice. Okay? So, napapansin nyo dito, hinighlight ko yung mga tamang sagot. Kasi, yung mga naka-highlight na words dyan or na words or sentence, ang tawag dyan is key response. Yung key response is, or keys, ito yung mga correct answer or simply ask correct answers. Okay? Next slide. Okay, we go now to distractions. So, distractors are a special type of alternative. These are the incorrect options whose job is to distract the test taker into thinking that the incorrect alternatives are correct. Yung distractors, ito nga yung nagbibigay ng confusion sa isang student or sa isang test takers, 'di ba? Kapag nakita mo na kapag in-internalize or ina-analyze ng isang student yung tanong, maguguluhan siya kasi parehas ba yung coastal area, parehas ba yung valley, or parehas ba yung plateau, di ba? Malilito siya kung pare-parehas ba yun. So iisipin niya kung ano talaga yung tamang sagot. Kapag nakapag-review yung students and nakita niya sa choices yung tamang sagot, malalaman niya na agad. Ganyan rin sa susunod at sa pangatlong example. So, yung mga naka-highlight naman na or naka-dark na color gray, ito naman yung distractors. Ito yung mga incorrect answers or yung mga incorrect answers na nagpapa-distract sa isang student. So, 'di ba sa kapag multiple choices, kapag nakita na ng students yung tamang sagot. Halimbawa, based on my experience, kasi alam ko each one of us na experience na rin 'to, 'di ba? So, kapag nag-review tayo tapos nakita na natin yung tamang sagot, halimbawa, may destroy nature, tapos hindi natin binasa yung STEM or hindi natin binasa yung tanong, meron pala nakalagay na except, which is negative statement siya. So, hindi mo isasagot dapat yung clue words na yon, or hindi mo isasagot yung word na tamang sagot. Okay? Hindi mo isasagot yung clue words. Dapat ang isasagot mo is yung negative. So, halimbawa, which of the following is halimbawa, these are the following steps in the process of animation, except except, tapos sa A, nakita niya agad na pre-production, production, post-production, yun agad yung sinagot niya. So, kapag sinabmit niya na yun, pinasa niya na sa teacher niya, mamamali siya kasi hindi niya binasa yung word na excepts or dinisregard niya yung stem. So, kailangan yung mga examinees or yung mga students is mabasa nila or mabasa nila yung stem, hindi yung dinidisregard agad nila. So, tayo as a future teacher, kailangan din natin mag-construct ng stem na hindi nakakalito or hindi mahaba para kasi yung mga students, 'di ba, nahihirapan silang basahin 'yon or kapag sa exams hindi nila siniseryoso, nilalaktawan nila yung mga mahaba tapos hinuhulaan na lang nila, 'di ba? So, yun yung mga kadalasan na ginagawa kasi ng mga teacher na pinapahaba nila yung tanong. Siguro akala nila mas mapapaganda yung exam nila or mas ma-enhance yung learning ng students, which is not, because yun nga, yung negative effect nun is lalaktawan ng students yung tanong na yun and then huhulaan niya lang. So, kailangan gumawa tayo ng concrete na questions or na stems and gumawa rin tayo ng alternatives na malalaman agad ng students o makikita agad ng students na yun yung tamang sagot, and gumawa tayo ng distractors na tutugma or hindi hihiwalay or hindi magbibigay ng clue sa key response. Hindi niya i-give away yung right answers, which yung role ng distractors dun is i-distract niya yung mind nung isang test takers, okay? So, that's it for this slide. Next slide. So, in this slide, we will talk about on how to construct an effective stem. So, in constructing an effective stem, we must at least consider these things. First, the stem should be meaningful by itself and should present a definite problem. So, nakikita nyo naman sa example, yung stem is not meaningful and yung better stem. So, look how the way stem is constructed. Diba? Yung dun sa stem is not meaningful, in-state niya lang or pinahanap lang sa kanya or pinahanap lang sa examinees kung ano yung true statement or kung ano yung nagsasabi ng totoo, which is not good constructing of stem. So, pangalawa naman, which is yung better stem, in-state na dito yung mismong words or yung mismong dapat na hanapin yung students, hindi yung inasa niya lang dun sa alternatives yung answer. Okay, so what I mean is sa stem is not meaningful, yung alternatives niya is nilagay niya na lahat or nilagay niya yung mga infos or yung mga clue words or yung mga dapat alam ng estudyante or dapat understand ng students yan kasi na-discuss naman na yan or na-review na nila. So, in better content or in better constructing a STEM, kailangan yung alternative niya is nandun kung ano mismo yung dapat hanapin. Or for example, ayan, in-state niya dito kung anong characteristics na relative yung mitochondrial genomes. Okay, so in-state niya dito. So, ang na-process nito yung thinking ng isang bata or yung thinking ng isang examinees. Na-assess nito yung knowledge or yung na-assess nito yung students na i-understand niya or i-analyze niya yung question before answering kasi some STEM is not meaningful. Yung for instance, hindi na analyze or hindi na-analyze ng test takers yung questions because parang given na yung sagot, di ba? So ayan, true statement. So parang gini-give away niya na lang yung binibigay niya na yung tamang sagot, which is hindi naman siya wrong, pero hindi siya better kapag i-assess mo yung learning ng isang tao or ng isang student. Okay? So next slide. So in this slide, the STEM should not contain irrelevant material. So dito naman sa STEM should not contain irrelevant material. Kailangan yung STEM is hindi niya nilagay yung mismong words or yung mismong definition ng isang bagay. Halimbawa, organization, hindi niya define yung hindi niya define yung mismong meaning ng organization. So kailangan yung students may matutunan siya, or the students will be able to understand the question or will be able to analyze the questions. Hindi lang basta ibibigay mo yung definition, but you have to ask the student a question type. So based on example, what characteristic is relatively constant in mitochondrial genomes across species? So ayun, hinuli niya yung tanong, tapos nagbigay siya ng statement, which is mitochondria evolved from free-living bacteria that could carry our oxidative phosphorylation. For this reason, they have circular genomes that reproduce independently of the nuclear genome. So ayun, alam na agad kung ano yung sagot doon, which is parang malalaman na agad ng student kung ano yung sagot doon. So hindi niya na kailangan hindi na siya mag-analyze or hindi niya na i-understand yung question, which is yung naka-state sa pinaka-last. Hindi niya na i-understand yun, i-analyze yun kasi nga stated na sa first words or sa first sentence. So kailangan i-remove mo yung irrelevant material or i-remove mo yung mga unnecessary na information na hindi naman kailangan or hindi dapat gamitin sa pag-construct ng isang STEM. Okay? So next slide. So the STEM should be negatively stated only when significant learning outcomes requires it. So ano ba yung mga significant learning outcomes na nire-require itong negatively phrasing or negative stated STEM? So ito yung mga identification of dangerous or identification of dangerous laboratory or clinical practices. So ayan. So na-apply to tayo nung sa lab natin sa IA, Industrial Arts, di ba? Karamihan doon is puro risk and hazard yung makikita natin doon. Or kailangan i-determine natin kung if this act may put our lives at risk, or if this act if this is a hazard. Okay, so yun yung mga pwedeng gamitan ng negative STEM. So example nun, these are the hazards that may put the workers at risk, except pwedeng ganun. Kailangan yung negative phrasing or yung negative phrase is naka-emphasize para malaman agad ng students or maintindihan agad ng students na negative yung hinahanap or negative negative key response yung kailangan i-understand mo or kailangan i-understand ng students. Okay? So, here are the examples. Negative phrasing. Which of the following is not true about mitochondria? A. They contain DNA. B. They make some of their own proteins. C. They make static. So, hinahanap dito yung false answer. So, ano ba yung hindi totoo about mitochondria, di ba? So, yung students will be able to kapag ginamit mo to, the students may not be able to understand if this is a negative phrasing o medyo mako-confuse sila kung isasagot ba nila yung tamang sagot, di ba? Or I mean, isasagot nila yung isa sa true na sagot, hindi yung false, hindi yung wrong answer, di ba? So, next one is negative phrasing. All of the following are true about mitochondria except, okay, they contain DNA, they make some of their own proteins, they are static. So, ganun rin. So, hinahanap lang rin dito yung kung true or false. Okay? So, or kapag ang nasa question is sinasabi is not true, kailangan ang ibig sabihin nun, hinahanap niyang answer is false, which is negative. Okay? So, sa pag-construct ng better negative phrasing, kailangan i-state natin kung ano yung i-state natin kung anong type, halimbawa dito, kung anong i-state natin kung anong type, kung ano yung type ng isang item, okay? Sa alternatives, for example, a water type extinguisher is suitable for putting out fire caused by burning all of the following. Ibig sabihin nito, ito yung lahat daw dito ay tubig or parang tubig or liquid siya. Pero kapag sinindihan to is mag-aapoy siya. Lahat daw yun is liquid type. So, alin dito yung hindi? So, kailangan hanapin mo dun yung answer na yun. Except, may nakalagay dun na except. Okay? So, sa paggawa ng negative phrasing, laging tatandaan is kapag gagawa ka ng negative phrasing, kailangan yung constructed stem mo is nandun yung constructed stem mo is concrete siya or may ma-identify agad ng students kung ano yung ma-identify agad ng test takers or ng examinee kung ano yung hinahanap or kung ano yung hinahanap mo. Kasi, naka-emphasize na doon sa stem mo kung yung negative phrase na which is yung except or not true. Okay? So, next slide. So, constructing an effective stem. So, sa pagko-construct daw ng effective stem, kailangan sumasagot siya sa tanong na or the stem should be a question or a partial sentence. So, should be a question. So, kailangan sumasagot siya sa tanong na who, what, when, where, why, and how. So, kapag gusto mo namang gumamit ng sentence, hindi mo kailangan ilagay yung isang buong sentence. Okay? So, kapag gagamit isang buong sentence, tapos gagawin mo siyang blank. So, ang mangyayari doon, parang magiging completion type test item siya, di ba? So, in a way na multiple choice yung itsura niya. So, medyo, ang tawag doon, interior blank kasi nasa loob yung blank niya. So, exterior blank which is ganito. Blank is an addition, ganon. So, medyo ano pa rin yun, medyo hindi siya complete kasi hindi siya sumasagot sa WH quest, sa WH, di ba? Or sa who, what, when, where, and how. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. So, parang hindi ma-assess yung learning ng student doon, or or the students will not be able to understand, or will not be able to analyze the item or the STEM kasi nga wala, or hindi siya nagre-reach sa level ng understanding or ng understanding. So, sa paggawa ng better partial sentence, ganito dapat. In addition to nucleus, which organism contain DNA? So, kailangan nandun pa rin yung question, hindi pa rin mawawala yung question. Kasi, kasi multiple choice type test items, questions talaga siya. Lahat is questions. Okay? So, hindi mo kailangan mag-conclude or maglagay ng isang buong sentence. Pwede na lang kung ito ay situational. Though sa situational, meron pa rin question na hinahanap. So, yung question na yun, bakit naglalagay ng question? Bakit kailangan yung STEM is question like? Kasi, ina-assess nito yung learning ng student if they were able to reach their competencies, or if they were able to understand or analyze the problem, or analyze the problem. Kasi kadalasan nangyayari, di ba, kapag interior blank or ganyan, hindi na ina-analyze, minsan hindi na ina-analyze ng test takers yung mismong item kasi nga hindi siya question. So parang walang learnings na ma-measure doon, diba? So kailangan question type yung multiple choice mo. Pwede mong may apply yung blank kapag gagamit ka ng completion type test items, or identification type test items, or even matching type. Pwede rin siyang ganon. Pwede rin siyang ganon. So, kapag multiple choice, kailangan hindi ka gumamit ng blank, or hindi ka gumamit ng blank. Or kapag gagamit ka ng sentence, kailangan meron din siyang, may support siya ng question. Kailangan supported siya ng question para maging concrete yung STEM na ginawa mo, or para maging concrete yung question yung item na yun. Okay? Next slide. So, next is constructing effective alternatives. So, kung merong constructing effective STEM, meron rin naman constructing effective alternatives. So, in constructing effective alternatives, these are the things that you have to at least consider. Okay? So, first, all alternatives should be plausible. So, yung plausible is, ibig sabihin nun, halimbawa, yung alternatives mo is about science, tapos nagdagdag ka ng cartoons na karakter, o hindi na magiging plausible yun. Kailangan, kung about science yung alternatives mo, dapat lahat ng alternatives mo should be about science. Okay? So, hindi applicable or hindi dapat i-apply yung alternatives na hindi tugma sa other alternatives. Kasi bakit? Kasi yung distractors or yung alternatives, ito nga yung magbibigay sa student ng ability to understand or analyze the questions, o paano sila makakapag-understand ng question, or paano nila ma-analyze yung questions if the alternatives is not plausible. Okay? So here the example of implausible alternatives. Who gathered the data that helped reveal the structure of DNA? Francis Crick, George Washington, James Watson, Rosalind Franklin, and Snoopy. So, implausible alternatives, which is Snoopy. Hindi naman siya, hindi siya, hindi siya, hindi siya real characters, or hindi siya human, diba? Ano lang siya, cartoon characters, diba? Or cartoon characters si Snoopy. So, implausible, hindi dapat i-apply yung ganitong type ng alternative. So, common student errors provide the best source of distractors. So, next, alternatives should be stated clearly and concisely. So, kapag gagamit ka naman ng mahaba ang alternatives, kailangan yung alternatives na yun, or yung mga choices na yun, is concise yung pagkakagawa mo, or concise yung pagkaka-construct mo ng sentence. Hindi nakakalito. Items that are excessively wordy assess students' reading ability rather than their attainment of the learning objectives. Example nito, kapag nag-exam ka, diba, tapos mahahaba yung alternatives mo, ang tendency nito, kung ano na lang yung maikling sagot, yun na lang yung sinasagot ng student. So, pag ganun, hindi natin mame-measure yung understanding ng student if they were able to understand our lesson through this assessment or through multiple choice type of assessment. Okay? So, next slide. So, alternatives should be mutually exclusive. Alternatives with overlapping content may be considered trick items by test takers. So, ito yung example nito, overlapping alternatives. How many chromosomes are found in a typical human cell? A12, B18, C32, B46, E54. So, the alternatives are overlapping because a cell that contains 18 chromosomes also contains 12. A cell that contains 12 also contains 18 and 12, and etc. So, nakikita niyo yung pag-overlap ng answer, di ba? So, yung 18 chromosomes, it contains also a 12. So, in a cell that contains 12 also contains 18, and so on. So, paulit-ulit lang yung process. So, yung tendency nito, yung test takers is malilito siya, or sobra yung trick na sobrang tricky ng question nito. So, yung test takers maybe or will not be able to may not be able to analyze this sample or this problem. Okay, so ang role ng distractors or ng alternatives should distract the test takers to the right answer, hindi i-confused yung test takers sa right answer, kung ano ba yung right answer. Okay, so magkaiba yung make the test takers confused and make the test takers be distracted. Okay, so alternatives should be homogeneous in content. So alternatives that are heterogeneous in content can provide cues to student about the correct answer. So yung mga heterogeneous daw yung content ng alternatives, binibigay niya na yung clue kung ano yung tamang sagot. So, with that, hindi na ma-assess ng test taker yung learning nila, or hindi na nila, or they will not be able to use their critical thinking skills, or they will not be able to understand or analyze the problem. So, mostly ang word ko na ginagamit is understand and analyze, kasi In multiple choice, you have to understand the question and analyze the problems, okay? So, in a heterogeneous, binibigay niya daw yung mismong words or yung cues na dapat binibigay niya yung mga keywords na sagot para sa mga binibigay niya yung keywords na sagot para sa mga test takers, which is na medyo hindi siya dapat kung gusto natin ma-assess yung learning ng isang student or ng isang test taker. So kailangan gumamit tayo ng homogeneous, which is they will able to analyze the problem first. Gagawa sila ng analyzation, and then they will come up to understanding, and then mahanap na nila yung sagot. So, hindi tayo nagbigay ng mismong clue dun sa choices. Okay? Next slide. Next is, alternatives should be free from clues about which response is correct. So, sophisticated test takers are alert to inadvertent clues to the correct answer. Such differences in grammar length, formatting, and language choice in the alternatives. It's therefore important that alternatives should have grammar consistent with the stem. Kailangan daw yung pag-construct mo ng stem, tsaka yung paggawa mo ng alternatives is consistent sila. Hindi sila nagko-collapse, okay? So, are parallel in form. Yung parallel dapat, ganyan yung parallel, diba? Okay, so yung dapat parallel in form sila. Kailangan, hindi nag-i-intersect yung stem, tsaka yung alternatives, which is, parang kasi kapag nag-i-intersect, ibinibigay na ng alternatives yung mismong sagot or yung clues, diba? Are similar in length. Pwede ring similar in length or sa haba ng type, or pwede rin namang medyo mahaba ng konti yung isang choice, yung isang choice, which is yung halimbawa yung A, mahaba sa B ng konti. So pwede yon. Pasok yun sa are similar in length. Ang bawal lang ang dapat hindi lang siguro natin ilagay is kapag gagawa tayo ng multiple choice type test items, alternatives, hindi tayo dapat gumawa sa alternatives na napakahabang sentences na siya. Hindi na siya sentence lang or word, okay? Use similar language. So, similar language, kailangan pareho lang yung language na gagamitin mo. Halimbawa, gumamit ka ng English. Then, dapat sa alternatives, English din yung medium ng language na ginamit mo. Pag gumamit ka ng Japanese, then Japanese din yung alternatives. Gumamit ka ng Filipino question, then dapat yung alternatives mo is true Filipino rin. Okay? Next is, the alternatives, all of the above and none of the above should not be used. So, kapag gagawa ka ng alternative, kailangan hindi mo lagi ginagamit yung none of the above and all of the above. Dahil ito na yung mismong word, or ito na, kapag ginamit natin yun, ito na yung mismong sagot, di ba? Kadalasan ito na yung mismong sagot, di ba? Yung clues, ito na yung mismong clue, hindi na siya clue. Ito na yung mismong sagot talaga, di ba? Sa halimbawa, experience natin, di ba, kapag nagsasagot tayo, kapag nakita na natin mismo yung none of the above, yun na agad yung answer natin. So, iwasan sa paggawa nun, or kung kaya, less sa paggawa nun, or kung kaya, wag gumamit ng none of the above and all of the above para ma-assess natin yung learnings ng ating mga students. Okay, so next slide. So, the alternatives should be presented in a logical order. It could be alphabetical or numerical. So, in my first example, which is the logic internal to the question, meron ditong chemical reaction, and then sa choices or sa alternatives, meron ditong uh, logical order, which is first, fructose, second, carbon dioxide, third, oxygen, and fourth, dihydrogen monoxide. So, nakikita nyo naman, as you can see, dun sa may dito, nauuna is yung fructose, and the second is yung carbon dioxide. So, meron siyang sunod-sunod or may sequence siya, or may order siya. Okay? So next is the hydrogen. Ginagamit to para maiwasan yung biased towards certain positions. Okay? So next is alphabetical order. First, active transport pumps. Next, exocytosis. C, facilitated diffusion. D, phagocytosis. E, simple diffusion. So, ginagamit to para para maiwasan yung pagsasama ng dalawa with the same, or para maiwasan yung pagsasama or pagdidikit nung dalawang choices which have the same last words para hindi malito yung test takers sa pagsagot. Kasi 'di ba, ang tendency nito kapag magkakatabi, halimbawa yung simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. So, ma-answer halimbawa, ang tamang answer is simple diffusion. Pero ang sagot nung test takers is facilitated diffusion. Kasi nga, hindi siya naka-alphabetical order. So, dapat kapag gagawa ka ng alternatives, pwede siya naka-alphabetical order or logical order or in numerical. Okay? Next. The number of alternatives can vary among items as long as the alternatives are plausible. So, sa paggawa daw ng alternatives, pwede siyang maramihan or pwede siyang A to J, pwede siyang A to H, depende sa iyo kung hanggang ilan yung possible na gusto mo, as long na plausible or hindi or yung isang choice doon is hindi lalagpas sa mismong content noon. Halimbawa yung example ko kanina. So, dapat yung isang choice doon is hindi siya fictional character. Dapat if halimbawa yung alternatives is about science or about mathematical, about math lang siya, or about solutions sa math or about numbers. Kapag science, kapag ang topic is chemical reaction, kailangan about chemical reaction lang siya. Hindi ka pwedeng maglagay ng mathematical or ng tungkol sa ICT or tungkol sa kahit saang bagay kapag gumagawa ka ng isang alternatives. Okay? So, proceed na tayo sa pag-assess ng multiple choice in higher order thinking skills. So, next slide. So, next is writing multiple choice type test items, assessing HOTS. So, writing multiple choice items to test higher order thinking, design questions that focus on higher levels of cognition as defined by Bloom's taxonomy. So, sa pag-create daw ng questions in multiple choice, assessing in HOTS, kailangan daw yung mga questions doon is the students will not only be able to review the past lessons, or hindi na siya simple recalling, meron na siyang understanding and internalizing, pasok na siya sa higher order of order of cognition ni Bloom's, according to the taxonomy of Bloom's. So, in constructing multiple choice items to test higher order thinking, it can also be helpful to design problems that require multi-logical thinking, where multi-logical thinking is defined as thinking that requires knowledge of more than one fact to logically and systematically apply concepts to a problem, according to Morrison and Fee 2001, page 20. So, yung multi-logical thinking, it is thinking sympathetically enters, considers, and reasons within multiple points of view. Okay? So, next slide. So, next is create questions that require 1. Synthesis of a larger amount of people. Kailangan yung questions is the students will be able to come up, or the students will be able to form theory or system, or combine their ideas to create new one. Next is analysis of situational problem. So, in each problem, kailangan merong pasok yung analysis that kailangan the students will be able to analyze, or will be able to use analyzation while answering the questions to achieve the cognitive to achieve the cognition or in higher order thinking skills of Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, next is application of the understanding of the content. Kailangan na-apply ng student yung or ng test takers yung questions sa sarili niya or in real life scenarios. Hindi lang niya basta naintindihan, or hindi lang basta niya naintindihan yung content or the questions, but also the test takers or the students are able to apply the knowledge or the content to themselves. Okay, so longer amount of time to answer. So in creating questions, it requires a lot of time to answer kasi in higher order thinking skills, hindi lang siya basta nasasagutan, unlike sa multiple choice type test items lang, which is merong words doon na given na, or meron dong items or merong question doon na given na yung answers, pero with assessing of hats, yung students will be able to use analysis or analyzation in the question. So kaya kailangan talaga mag-allot ka ng time for them to answer the questions. Next is design questions that require the student to apply the knowledge, principles, laws, or calculate results before selecting answers. So, sa calculate results before selecting answers, pwede natin ma-apply ito sa mathematical situation. For example, sa mga engineering, sa mga engineering, di ba? Hindi lang sila basta-basta nanghuhula ng sagot. Kina-calculate pa nila, iniisip pa nila yung tamang solution na gagamitin para malaman yung results, or kung ano yung lumabas sa results nila. Tapos kapag may tumugma dun sa may choices or sa alternatives, yun yung tamang sagot. So hindi yung test takers, hindi lang nila basta-basta sinasagutan, or hindi lang nila basta alam yung tanong, meron din silang understanding dun sa tanong. or na-apply din nila yung na-apply nila yung na-apply nila yung lessons na na-discuss sa kanila or yung notes na na-review nila instead of reviewing only. Okay? Or instead of memorizing only memorizing the solution to be used. Okay, next. So next is design questions that require the student to synthesize information from more than one aspect of the content or lesson. So have the questions that help or that will make the students to combine the different ideas or various of ideas from the lessons. From the lessons. So yung students hindi lang niya basta narinig yung idea, hindi lang niya basta narinig yung words na yon, but inintegrate niya yon as another idea or gumawa siya or nag-develop siya ng bagong ideas or ng bagong examples para mas lalo niya pang maintindihan or mas lalo niya pang maintindihan yung lesson or yung content. So in questions, kailangan yung students hindi lang siya sa questions, kailangan yung students hindi lang basta niya makikita yung sagot, but mag-iisip siya or he will use his cognitive thinking skills to answer the questions. In possible example ng dun sa synthesized information is in situational questions. So here is my example. Anna and his friends are all belong to the group called Trops, which seen as the most powerful group in their school because of its member that has always been an academic awardee and has shown excellency in each subject. Anna adopted the attitude of her friend, and as she graduated, Anna also received an award with flying colors in her name. What was Anna has showed to her behavior? In this question, meron ng synthesizing of idea na nagaganap. So first, letter A, Anna has adopted the behavior of her group. She wants to impress her friends. She wants to prove that her friends are good influence for her. Anna just want to be acknowledged. So sa STEM, the students or the test takers will not only be reading the text or hindi na siya through memorizing, di ba? Kasi situational na siya. So yung knowledge ng students is dapat applicable na sa kanya, di ba? Yung lessons is applied na sa sarili niya. So kasi kapag sinabi nating reviewing, nire-review niya lang yung past lessons, which is below siya sa lots of or lower order thinking skills. So pag sinabi rin naman nating memorizing, minimemorize niya lang each word. So there's no cognitive process or walang development na nagaganap dahil minimemorize niya lang yung answer. So dito ang sagot is A. So ganun din sa example number 2, same lang rin sa example number 1. So ang sagot is C, which is she is cheerful and let all the students participate in class during her time. So ang situational din yung STEM, but in short matter lang naman. Or hindi siya gaano kahabang situational. Okay, next. Yan. example rin yan ng isang situational or ng isang item or ng isang type of item sa multiple choice na 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 nagde-develop ng higher order thinking skills ng isang student. So, sa kabuuan, ang higher order thinking skills hindi lang siya through memorizing or reviewing or recalling or simply recalling. Nag na na yung students are now able to adapt or apply the knowledge that they have learned, or they are able to internalize or synthesize the questions or each questions that has in their quiz or in their assessment. So with this, pwede nating na-assess natin yung learnings ng student in higher na-assess na natin yung learning ng students, or as na-achieve na nila yung competence na kailangan nila, or na-achieve na nila yung competency na kailangan ma-develop nila in real when they reach in their age, or kapag they faced a real life situation, applied na nila yung knowledge instead of recalling or memorizing recalling or memorizing the situations. Yun lang, and thank you for listening sa aking report.
That would be all for our asynchronous presentation. Thank you for watching and see you on our synchronous meeting.